Hope you're having a fantastic Wednesday. Welcome back to the Philip DeFranco Show, and let's just jump into it. And the first thing we're going to talk about today is this very interesting but also incredibly concerning news coming from the World Wildlife Fund. This week they released a new report about wildlife populations around the globe, and the results were not good. And as far as how bad are we talking about? Well, according to the report, which looked at data from 1970 to 2014, 60% of vertebrate animals have been wiped out. And the situation is most concerning in Central and South America and the Caribbean, where wildlife populations have declined by 89%. And in addition to that, freshwater ecosystems have also declined by 83% worldwide. In fact, 6 billion tons of fish and invertebrate have been taken from the world's ocean since the 1950s. Half of shallow water corals have also been lost in the past 30 years. And here, if things continue, the report says that up to 90% of the world's coral reefs might be gone by mid-century. And on top of all of that, they reported that 1/5 of the Amazon has disappeared in the last 50 years. So one of the questions connected to this is why? Why is this happening? And according to the report, the main reasons for decline are the overexploitation of species in agriculture, as well as land conversion, which is commercial or agricultural land development, with the report noting that only 1/4 of land on Earth is free from impacts of human activity. Now, when it comes to land conversion, the WWF says that globally forest degradation is actually slowed, which is good news, and that appears to be thanks to reforestation efforts and plantations. But forest degradation is still accelerated in tropical forests, and so that's incredibly bad news for wildlife populations because tropical forests contain some of the highest levels of biodiversity on Earth. And so with that said, it brings us to, well, what are the experts saying? What does this mean for the future? And according to Mike Barrett, Executive Director of Science and Conservation at the WWF, it means, quote, "We are sleepwalking towards the edge of a cliff." If there was a 60% decline in the human population, that would be equivalent to emptying North America, South America, Africa, Europe, China, and Oceania. This is the scale of what we have done. This is far more than just being about losing the wonders of nature. Desperately sad though that is, this is actually now jeopardizing the future of people. Nature is not a nice to have, it is our life support system. We also have Professor Bob Watson, one of the world's most eminent environmental scientists, warning that the destruction of nature is as dangerous as climate change. And he said about the report, nature contributes to human well-being culturally and spiritually, as well as through the critical production of food, clean water, and energy, and through regulating the Earth's climate, pollution, pollination, and floods. The Living Planet report clearly demonstrates that human activities are destroying nature at an unacceptable rate, threatening the well-being of current and future generations. Another thing of note is that this report's coming out around the same time that China's making some news of its own regarding endangered animals. And that's because this week, China announced it has now legalized the use of endangered tiger and rhino products for, quote, medical purposes. And this is huge news on its own because it reverses a 1993 ban on the international trade of tiger bones and rhino horns. But at least on the surface level, there appears to be some restriction. China State Council saying in a statement that they can be used for medical research and healing as long as they come from farmed animals. Adding powdered forms of rhino horn and bones from dead tigers can only be used in qualified hospitals by qualified doctors recognized by the State Administration of Traditional Chinese Medicine. The council also adding that any illegal trade of rhino and tiger products would be subject to, quote, severe crackdowns, and that illegal products would still be confiscated. But when you look at the situation, it's still confusing as to why they would do this, at least for the proposed reason. I say this because back in 2010, the World Federation of Chinese Medicine Societies issued a statement saying that there was no proof tiger bone had medical benefit. That was also the same year they removed rhino horn and tiger bone from its list of approved products for patients. And in addition to this, you have many conservationists saying this could be devastating. Reportedly, worldwide in the wild, there are only about 3,900 tigers and 30,000 rhinos across 5 species. And once again, this is for horn and bone, which has been said in the past that there is no actual benefit. And in recent years, there are reports that leaders in this field discourage the use. And I will say, I think there are certain situations where you say, respect the culture, right? It's a different culture, you gotta respect it. I think it makes sense. This, in my opinion, is not one of those. It's not like, oh, it turns out rhino horn, it cures cancer. It doesn't seem like there is an actual benefit here, but you're using medicine as a loophole. And as far as the report in general from the WWF, that's just horrifying. And finally, I guess regarding the report, for me, it's more of a question to you. When you hear these things, you know, just the utter destruction, when you hear that, do you feel like, well, what can I do? I'm just one person. Or do you end up feeling like, you know what, I need to become involved? And I ask because at different points in my life, I've definitely felt both. But in addition to that question, what I'll leave you is if you do want to get involved or you want to find out more, you want to throw yourself into this, I'm going to link down below to several resources, including the WWF, some we've talked about in the past regarding reforestation. There are a lot of ways we can and we probably should. That's where I'm going to leave that one. And then
Biodiversity is the variety of life, as we saw in this video. There are thought to be 8.7 million species on planet Earth, and as we saw in this video, biodiversity is of utmost importance to humans. The loss of one key species can have a detrimental impact on many levels, from other species of animals to plants to the physical environment, as shown by wolves. Human activities are reducing biodiversity. Our future depends upon maintaining a good level of biodiversity, and so we need to start taking measures to try and stop the reduction. In this video, we're going to look at how humans are negatively impacting biodiversity. Here are some of the main human-induced threats facing biodiversity. As the world population has grown from 1.5 billion in 1900 to nearly 7.5 billion people today, unsurprisingly, the land use has changed. Habitats have been destroyed in favor of agriculture, forestry, fishing, urbanization, and manufacturing. Unsurprisingly, habitat loss has greatly reduced the species' richness. Habitat fragmentation has also meant that populations have been split into smaller subunits, which then, when faced by challenging circumstances, have not been able to adapt and survive. After habitat loss, overharvesting has had a huge effect on biodiversity. Humans historically exploit plant and animal species for short-term profit. If a resource is profitable, we develop more efficient methods of harvesting it, inevitably depleting the resource, as is currently happening with fishing and logging. The exploited species then needs protection. The difficulty is that the demand then outstrips the supply, and so the resource value rises. This increases the incentive to extract the resource and leads to the final collapse of the population, as happened with whales, elephants, spotted cats, cod, tuna, and many more species. Human activities are polluting the air and water. Toxic discharge into water from industrial processes, unsurprisingly, has a negative effect on local aquatic species by killing, weakening, or affecting their ability to reproduce. Another big water pollution problem is eutrophication, which we'll look at in detail in this video. Phosphorus and nitrogen in fertilizers run off agricultural fields and pass into rivers. These surplus nutrients cause algae to bloom, which then starves other aquatic species of oxygen and light, causing them to die. Acid rain is the consequence of humans polluting the air. This causes lakes and water bodies to become more acidic, killing fish, mollusks, amphibians, and many other species. A huge impact humans have had on planet Earth is the introduction of alien species to habitats. In fact, it is estimated that on any given day there are 3,000 species in transit aboard ocean-going vessels. Alien species can cause problems in a number of ways. Pause the video and have a look. Throughout the Earth's history, there have been periods of rapid climate change that have led to mass extinction events. We are currently in a period of fluctuating climate, but nearly all scientists agree that human activities like burning fossil fuels are speeding up global warming. We don't know how much climate change is going to affect biodiversity in the future, but it is predicted to be huge. Loss of sea ice and ocean acidification are already causing huge reductions in biodiversity. Climate change alters temperature and weather patterns, with changing patterns of rainfall and drought expected to have significant impacts on biodiversity. So there you have a selection of human-related impacts on biodiversity. There are many more, which with a quick search on the internet will bring up. If you want to understand why we should care about maintaining biodiversity, watch this video.